So let's talk about pivot points then. Got the trophy here, and the pivot point is basically where the manipulator shows up. W, E, or R, move, rotate, or scale. Right, shows up there, in this case at the corner, and that's kind of what we want, but we don't want to animate directly on the geometry. So we're going to use this, and we're going to put this trophy back into the center of the world first off. Let's get it production ready. So I'm going to move it in all windows. Let's just make sure I'm going to get it to right about the center. Tap on my space bar to go between the views. There we go. So it's about in the center of the world, and that's kind of what we want. I'm going to do modify center pivot somewhere in there. There it is. Good enough. And then I will do modify freeze transformations to get rid of these numbers that we put in here. You can see my video about freeze transformations to find out what that really does. All right, now we're good. Okay, so we're going to start adding in a couple of pivot points or group nodes to animate this, old school, no rigging even. So the idea is that we want this trophy to rotate and tip on its bottom from the left and to the right. That means I need a pivot point down here. So I'm going to select the trophy and do edit group or control G. Let me get my outliner open so I can see it. And you can see every group comes in with a pivot point right there at the bottom. It's at the origin. And that's great. The group node itself, here it is, we'll call it tip left or whatever you want to call it. I'm just labeling it for the animation we're going to do. So if I want it to tip on the left, I'm going to have to move that pivot point. Now the group node has a pivot point, right? It has a center of it, has translate, rotate, and scale information, does not have any shape nodes. It's very lonely. Group node has no shape nodes. So I'm selecting that. To move the pivot point, I have two choices. I can hold down D, as in dog, or insert key. I'm on a laptop, I have no insert key. So D it is, holding down D, and then I will move this just on this axis over here. Good enough. And you can adjust it to your heart's desire, holding down D. And when you let go, then it goes back to your normal mode. And so if I wanted to get it right there on that, that's fine. Or wherever, if you wanted to put it up here on the contact point, or somewhere in between, up to you. Okay, so that's tip left. Let's animate that real quick. I'm gonna go to frame 1, S for keyframe, and then tip them over. S for keyframe. Excellent. Some gorgeous animation there. Here. Aha. All right, so let's stand them back up again. I use my middle mouse magic, go to frame 0, middle mouse click on frame, whatever, 48, hit S. And that made a copy of that animation, or that keyframe. Okay, well, let's say I want it to tip the other way. Well, my pivot point isn't in the right spot. This isn't. I need another pivot point. Now you get a choice. You can make a group node, and where you put it, your choice, is what happens with the animation. All right, let me show you. That made no sense what I just said. I'm just going to show you. Let's select this fella. Group again, edit, group. And because I grouped it that way, I selected the trophy and then grouped it, it put it in between. And that's actually what we want. So I'm going to call this tip right. Oh my gosh. There we go. And I'm going to move that pivot point over here to this side. I'm just going to eyeball it. Okay, so watch what happens. If I select my tip left, I can see the keyframes. Let's go over here. If I look at tip right, that pivot point's getting drug along. See that? Because it's a child of where I put it. Let's see, came down here. So now frame, whatever this, I'm going to select tip right and hit S for set a keyframe, and then animate it over here, S. All right, so there we have that, and there is that. So we've got these two group nodes, and each one has their pivot point. Now the thing to note is this is kind of a straight ahead animating method. My tip left, if I look at it here and look at tip right, that's, we already saw that. But now if I come over here, let's look on this one. Tip left is way back here. We left it. So as you add the group nodes, the children move away from the parent. Isn't that the way? So we leave behind the parent nodes and we just keep adding in other ones. So if I was to add in a little bit more, let's see, frame 74. I'm going to add in another one so that, I have no idea, totally winging it now. We'll just add something else in here. Now, the trick is you probably want to go back to a 0, 0 point before you add that group node. It just makes it a little bit easier. So I'm going to edit group, no idea. I'll just probably keep it there. Let's see how it's in between. So now, where do I want that pivot point to be? I don't know. It's not going to work right there, but I'll do it there anyway. There we go. So now I've got it there. I put it back to the 0, 0 point, moved it, and call this tip handle. This won't look great, but you'll get the idea. Tip handle. Yeah, I like the typo. Let's keep it there. All right, so now I got, let's see, 74 on this one. I'll make a keyframe on 80. A little bit like that. Oops, wrong button. There we go. Just a little bit of rotation. Does that make sense? So when we do that, of course, that wasn't super big. I'll make a huge one. Sure. Just to show you, there's that. We've now gone away from that pivot point. Does that make sense? Right? So pivot point animation, down and dirty, you just take your prop and you just straight ahead adding group nodes as children as you go through your animation. Now there's no rigging involved, you have no controllers. You do have to be aware of what you have selected as you move along, so you can then go back and adjust your graph editor, right? All right, happy rigging.